Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. Back today to give you 5 more seasonal book recommendations, this time for the autumn months. I think like a lot of people, when I think of autumn, I think back to school, I think spooky season, definitely a bit of dark academia thrown in there. A little bit of a chill in the air, but not quite so bad as winter, of course. Maybe books that are a little bit more somber, a bit more reflective, and so I've tried to encompass that into my 5 recommendations today. The first one being The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. If you want to see a full review that I have for this, I will link it down below. This book is set in 19th century Oxford, tracking the creation of the Oxford English Dictionary but through a fictional character of Esme. We're following her life from childhood into adulthood, her father working with Dr. John Murray on the dictionary, and Esme expressing her concern and frustration with the fact that there are so many more gendered words, particularly words to do with women's work, which are not going to be included. And so she takes it upon herself to create her own dictionary of these lost words. And I think this is a perfect autumn read because it is quieter, it is more reflective and introspective. Of course, you've got the setting of Oxford, though I wouldn't necessarily call this dark academia. This is definitely more on the lighter side. But you've got this historical setting, it feels very cozy, but it is a slower paced story, which kind of echoes the slower pace of autumn as the year starts to wind down. This book is taking place in the late 19th and early 20th century, so you've got this kind of turn of the century, this transition period. There's a lot of social change in the air. Autumn itself is quite a bit of a transition period, and it's just very beautiful and atmospheric, and I think would be a great pick for this time of year. Another very atmospheric read, but one that is very, very contained, is The Library of Unrequited Love by Sophie Divry. This is French translated fiction. It all takes place in this one library and is delivered basically as a monologue of this librarian who opens up the library to discover that one of the patrons has been stuck inside all night, and she basically takes it upon herself to rant at him about all of the trials and tribulations, all of her woes in running the library, and particularly a patron that has caught her eye and that she is a bit in love with, but who doesn't really know that she exists. Once again, another very intimate, very introspective kind of book. You've got this librarian who is very lonely, very melancholy, but with a dash of humour and sarcasm, basically philosophising about her life and about the Dewey Decimal System. You're getting a chance to look in at all of her frustrations with the world, all of her unfulfilled desires. Perhaps you yourself are getting to the end of the year and feeling your own frustrations, your own unfulfilled desires of like New Year's resolutions that didn't quite come to pass. Maybe you might find yourself relating to this librarian or being able to have a little bit of a chuckle with her at how ridiculous life can be. I am really sticking with the school recommendations with this round of seasonal book recommendations. My next one is In Memoriam by Winn. I read this earlier this year and I absolutely loved it. In this we see 2 boys who are both best friends at school who secretly harbour romantic interest in the other at the outbreak of World War I, as they very quickly have to become men overnight as they enlist in the war, very quickly having to learn and become accustomed to the brutality of war and how this fight is not just one of their school games but something much realer and with much more long-lasting implications, not only to themselves but to the country that they live in. This is a much darker turn than the other books I've recommended. It is an absolutely harrowing read, particularly Winn's exploration of mental health of the soldiers in World War I. Not only mental struggles but the physical struggles. The description of death and gore in this book is truly shocking. It all feels very realistic but can be quite jarring. It feels a bit trite to say that it is a melancholic book because it is so much more than just melancholic. It is just a truly tragic book in many ways, but it is a deeply human story, one that just makes you sit back and think about how fragile human life is, how we shouldn't take it for granted. Of course, there would be a clear association between this book and Remembrance Day, which takes place in November. It would be an ideal read for them, but I think for any time of year. My next recommendation is another school setting in Oxford, but it is Babel by R.F. Kuang, another historical Oxford, but this is a more fantastical version of Oxford, which sees our main character of Robin whisked away to study translation, studying with a small elite group, but their studies in this subject have a bit of a magical twist, and there is also a deeper, darker side to this world, to their magic. R.F. Kuang discusses colonialism, the power of language, and who has control over language. Once again, the descriptions of Oxford are so vivid and atmospheric. The plot itself has a bit of mystery and darkness. You've got this vivid atmosphere, you've got the academic tension and rivalry, you've got this whiff of rebellion in the air, all which combines to make what I think a really perfect autumn read, particularly if you are somebody who likes a little bit of fantasy sprinkled in to your reading. And then finally, I did want to take my last recommendation away from academia. I wanted something that kind of nodded to the gloom and the spookiness of the season, but something that was a little bit more light. I know I could have gone for something that is actually spooky like Dracula or Frankenstein or Jekyll and Hyde, but as I say, I wanted something that was lighter, a bit sweeter, for those of you who just aren't really in the mood for all of the gloom and moodiness, but just want a little hint of it. And maybe unpredictably for an autumn recommendations videos, but I did land on Jane Austen, and so my recommendation is Northanger Abbey, because you're kind of getting the gloom and the gothic secondhand through the main character of Catherine, who is a bit of a fangirl for gothic novels, and as a result of reading so many of them, starts to think that she is seeing gothic plots playing out in her own life. But of course, Jane Austen is using these plot devices to kind of make fun and be a bit satirical of these gothic novels, kind of point out where they are not realistic to real life. You've got that gothic element, you've got a bit of mystery, but the wit and the satire of this book kind of keeps it cozy and very, very playful and fun. As I say, giving that nod to the kind of plots that we like in an autumnal book, but also reminding you to kind of stay grounded and maybe not to get so wrapped up in those plots that you are maybe ignoring your everyday life. So there we go, those are 5 of my recommendations for the autumn months. I love this time of year. Let me know what you think of these books, as well as any others you might want to recommend. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic, fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.